What's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be doing some work on the hatch. I know the last couple weeks have been mainly about the H22 minivan, but we're taking a break from that today. I'm going to be giving the hatch some attention because it does need a little love. Turns out that factory Prelude transmission is finally showing some signs of wear. I think second gear is hurt pretty bad, and we're going to have to pull the tranny off today and try to get second gear fixed. So it does run and drive just fine, but it makes a pretty bad clicking noise in second gear. It sounds like it's missing some teeth or something. I'm not sure what's up with it. We're gonna have to pull the tranny apart to find out. But hopefully we have all the parts here just to put it back together and get it running again. Just for right now, you know, just a quick fix. Should only take me a few hours to pull this thing out and tear the tranny apart and get the gear switched out if that's all it is. If it's something more serious, then we might not be able to fix her today. But I think I might have everything we need to get the hatch back up and running. So that's why it's been sitting over here in my garage on jack stands for like the last couple weeks. I haven't had much time to mess with it, but today I figured would be a good day to pull the tranny out and see what's wrong with it. But real quick, I'm going to show you guys what it sounds like up on jack stands. I'm just gonna start it up and put it in gear and run it through the gear so you guys can kind of hear what's happening before I start taking everything apart.
Look at that oil pressure. Cold start, it's right about 80 PSI, just a little under. Give it a rev. You can easily see 100 PSI on the cold start. So even the hatch has really good oil pressure for those of you worrying about the minivan having too much. The hatch runs pretty high as well, and I've never had issues with it in the past. Anyways, real quick, let me show you guys what the issue is. So it is on jack stands right now. Definitely not the safest thing to do in your garage, but whatever. So we're in first gear right now. Gonna let up on the clutch, and the tires are spinning right now, and you can't hear anything at all. Nothing out of the ordinary, but right when I go into second gear, not sure how well you guys can hear that. Let me get out of the car, and hopefully it doesn't fall off and run me over. Yeah, not the best sounds. Making a pretty bad clunk. Then if I go into third gear, perfectly fine. So all the gears are perfect except for second gear. Something's definitely messed up in the tranny. So that's why we're gonna get her pulled off today and see if we can get her fixed up.
A lot of you guys already know the drill if you've been on the channel for a while, but pretty much to pull this transmission out, I'm just gonna be pulling off my intercooler piping, pull both of the axles out, probably pull the radiator, drop the motor sideways by pulling off this side mount right here, taking all the bolts off the transmission that hold it to the block, and slide her on out. It's pretty straightforward, so I'm gonna get on it. I'm gonna start with getting the axles pulled and then just go from there and get this tranny out, and then we'll see what's wrong with it. And just over an hour later, I got the transmission off of the hatch, and boy, is this thing dirty. I'm gonna start by pulling off this cap right here so I can get all these linkages out of the way. I also need to take this side motor mount off because I need to get to a couple bolts under there. And then once I get all that out of the way, I can start taking these 12mm bolts off that hold the casing together. Then we can pull it apart and see what went wrong. Alright, so I got the transmission apart, and we're definitely going to need a new second gear. So as you can see right there, it's missing about 3.5 teeth on that gear right there, and the gear that connects to that one on the counter shaft right here, it's pretty rough as well. It's not missing any teeth, but they're pretty beat up and pretty worn. Can't really see it on camera, but it feels like really rough on the outside because it's getting slowly beat up from this other one. And yeah, we're definitely gonna need a new set of gears on both the input shaft and the counter shaft for second gear. But the good news about this transmission is that my very first tranny I had in the hatch has the same exact gear ratio as this one does right here. It just had a different final drive, but that doesn't matter because we don't need to touch that. And that means I should have another complete second gear, or I should have a complete set in my shed, and I can just steal second gear off that one and put it on right here. So I dug through my shed and I found this input shaft. This actually came out of the very first transmission I had in the hatch back when I originally did the H swap. So this input shaft came from the original transmission that got sent to me from H Motors online. This was out of the T2, T4, like JDM transmission, and that's how I have the factory LSD. That all came with this right here, but I had to change the gear set out a long time ago because of synchro issues and the gears were starting to grind. That's back when I was at about 450 horsepower. But yeah, this is the original input shaft, and luckily it has the same amount of teeth on first gear and the same amount of teeth on the second gear. And it turns out that I just found out that second gear is actually part of the input shaft. So I was going into the shed mainly looking for gears, but turns out that second gear is part of the whole input shaft. So if this breaks, or if first gear breaks, or if this little reverse one breaks right here, you have to replace the whole input shaft because it's all one piece. So luckily, this one will match. It's the same exact one that's in there, so I can just swap that out. The only bad news is I was not able to find the second gear that goes right here on the counter shaft. I had it at some point. I don't know where it went. Maybe I threw it away. What that means is, since I can't find that other gear, is that I'm going to have to use the existing one that's already on here. And I did say it was already a little worn out, but it's really not that bad. It just got a little nicked up because the other gear is missing teeth, but it's still in pretty good shape. I don't think it's gonna be too much of an issue. So I'm just gonna have to use that for now just to get this thing by, because I do wanna get the hatch back up and running, at least for a little bit, until I find a more solid transmission solution, because this one's lasted me quite a while. I believe I put this one on about 4 months ago, and it has been through a lot since then. Like, I've been to the track multiple times on this thing. I've been beaten on it. So it's made it 4 months, and that's pretty impressive for a bone stock transmission. Nothing done to it at all, just factory transmission. It's 600 to 700 horsepower for 4 months, and I drive the crap out of my red car when it was running. So yeah, I'm not really that surprised at all that it finally broke, but I think this will be a good temporary solution just to get it back up and running. And yeah, so that's what I'm gonna have to do for now. I'm going to take all these gears off the top half of this counter shaft, swap them over to this one, and drop everything back in, and I'll be ready to put it all back together and throw it back in the car. And I guess we'll see how long it lasts. Alright, so I got the gears onto the new input shaft, got it all back together. It spins really smooth, so hopefully that's a good sign. Hopefully we'll get some more life out of this thing. Guess we'll find out once we get it back onto the car. But here is the old input shaft with that broken second gear. So missing a good like 3.5 teeth off that guy. Luckily we had the same exact one with the same gear ratios in the shed, so we were able to swap that out pretty easily. It was actually a really easy fix, didn't take me long at all to do. But yeah, we're ready to put this thing back together and get it in the car. But before I put the other half of the casing back on, I'm going to pull this magnet out and clean out any bits of gear that are in there, because I'm sure there's some buried down in the oil. So I'm just gonna make sure I clean it off real good, and then I need to take off all the old silicone right here, get some new RTV put on there, and then I'll be able to put it all back together and get it back in the car. So I got the transmission all put back together. It feels like it goes into every gear great. So it's ready to go back into the hatch, but I'm gonna call it for tonight. I could stay up and get this thing put in there, but I think I'm just gonna continue on this in the morning. And yeah, so I'll see you guys tomorrow, and I'll get this thing installed and we'll take it for a test drive. Okay, just woke up, time to get this thing back on the road. The transmission is on, so now it's just a matter of getting everything put back together. All right, I got everything back together. She has all the fluids that she needs. I'm gonna fire it up real quick, back it out, take it around the block, make sure it's going into every gear okay, and hopefully everything's all good from there. So I'm gonna get her fired up real quick. All right, so fast forward a couple hours later, I did try to fire up the hatch, but for some reason it won't hold in idle at all. It just dies, and I can keep it running if I give it gas. And I got it running for like 5 or 10 seconds, then the check engine light came on, so I shut it off, and I had to let my laptop charge for a bit. And come to find out, the air idle control valve, I guess, is messed up, so it's throwing an engine code for that, even though it's plugged in. And I just fired this thing up yesterday and everything was fine, and all I did was change out the transmission. So not sure why that messed up, but I got it figured out just for now. I tightened the throttle cable down just to hold the throttle flap open just a little bit, so it will hold in idle now. And I'm gonna have to find an air idle control valve for the hatch and for the minivan, because I took the one off the van to put it back on the hatch, so now they both need one, I guess. But yeah, I did get it figured out, so I can take this thing around the block and make sure it goes into the gears all right. I did just back it out of the garage, it goes into reverse perfect. So yeah, gonna fire up real quick and just go through all the gears. And there's our check engine light. Oh, there's second. Goes in fine, no more noises. Let's try third. Yep, transmission feels all right, so I guess we'll see how long this one lasts. I was trying to get this done before it got dark out, but unfortunately it started to get dark. Oh, looks like I also forgot to plug in the speed sensor. Whoops. So I took the hatch around the block one more time after it was fully warmed up, and I don't know what happened, but it idles fine now. There's no more check engine light, and yeah, I don't know. It's working fine now, so I put the throttle cable back to where it was, and it's just into every gear great. It's running great, and I did want to get some pulls during the day, but we ran out of daylight since it does get dark at like 4 o'clock now, and I had some issues with the idle, so I had to wait for the laptop to charge, things like that. But the hatch is running good now. It was a pretty ghetto fix, so we'll see how long it lasts, but that's why I love these Hondas. They're so simple. I fixed the broken second gear for free out of parts I had laying in my shed, and I know it could be put together a lot better, but it'll work for now. So we'll see how long it lasts. And yeah, I'm just happy it's up and running again. And I think that's gonna be it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I know I didn't do nothing crazy fun like that. Just spent this whole video rebuilding the transmission, but good to have the hatch back. So hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.